We need to keep kids safe online, but some special interests are sending policymakers in the wrong direction, pushing the so-called App Store Accountability Act, demanding government ID from all users just to download an app, replacing parents' judgment with government mandates. It doesn't even stand up in court. A better bipartisan bill, the Parents Over Platforms Act, would put parents in the driver's seat, empowering parents and businesses to keep kids safe without drowning all of us in red tape. Tell Congress to get it done right and put parents over platforms.
Paid for by ACT, the App Association.
Doors closing.
Okay, this is weird. Why is it so full?
I noticed that too.
This never happens at 3 in the morning. This is rush hour energy.
Yeah, except nobody's complaining or arguing or blasting loud music.
Because they're all asleep.
Every single one of them.
That guy's sitting upright.
That woman's holding a coffee.
That man is standing, asleep.
Okay, I don't like that.
I've worked 16-hour shifts in trauma, and this is still creeping me out.
I tried making eye contact with 3 people. Nothing, not even a twitch.
Maybe it's one of those collective exhaustion things.
Or...
Don't finish that sentence.
This is Tales from the Blue Line, my auditory anthology.
You know what this reminds me of?
a zombie movie?
No. A waiting room.
Oh, that's worse.
Hospitals get like this late at night. Full rooms, total silence, everyone suspended between things.
That is not comforting.
There's a story nurses tell. Not to scare you, just to explain things.
I already regret asking.
It's about a man who keeps coming into the ER off Halsted. Same name, same age, same calm look on his face.
How often?
Once every few years. Always late, always when someone else is right on the edge. And the strange part isn't that he dies.
What's the strange part?
He never came in to be saved.
We need to keep kids safe online, but some special interests are sending policymakers in the wrong direction, pushing the so-called App Store Accountability Act, demanding government ID from all users just to download an app, replacing parents' judgment with government mandates. It doesn't even stand up in court. A better bipartisan bill, the Parents Over Platforms Act, would put parents in the driver's seat, empowering parents and businesses to keep kids safe without drowning all of us in red tape. Tell Congress to get it done right and put parents over platforms.
Paid for by ACT, the App Association.
Every hospital had its stories. Not the ones they put in training manuals, the other ones. The quiet rules passed along between nurses during night shifts, usually whispered while refilling coffee or checking monitors that hummed just a little too loudly in empty rooms. Which elevators to avoid alone, which supply closets felt wrong after midnight, which patient names made older nurses go still when they popped up on the board. This story was about Halsted, about a stretch of road near the hospital where bad accidents seemed to stack up late at night, pedestrians clipped by mirrors, cyclists thrown just far enough to survive, people brought in by ambulance who shouldn't have made it and somehow did. Natalie heard the story during her first month on nights. She was new enough to still believe the monitors told the whole truth, still eager enough to ask questions when something didn't make sense. She was charting at the desk when Debbie leaned in beside her, eyes flicking briefly toward the ambulance bay. Debbie had been at the hospital longer than most of the equipment. She moved with the calm efficiency of someone who'd seen everything twice and survived it both times. When Debbie lowered her voice, people listened. "You see that name come through," Debbie said quietly, tapping the screen with one finger. "You let me know." Natalie frowned. "Which name?" Debbie hesitated, just long enough to make the moment feel heavier than it should have. "You'll know," she said. Natalie laughed it off. Everyone had their superstitions. Hospitals collected them the way old buildings collected dust. Then, a few nights later, the board updated. An incoming trauma. Hit and run on Halsted. Male. Mid-40s. And there it was. the name. It didn't mean anything to Natalie. Not at first. Just another entry in a long list of names, vitals, and estimated arrival times. But the reaction around her was immediate. Conversation stopped. Someone's pen hovered mid-chart. Debbie straightened slowly. "That's him," she said. Natalie glanced at the screen again. Him who? Debbie didn't answer. She just reached for gloves and started walking toward the trauma bay. "Watch," she said over her shoulder, "and don't ask questions until after." The ambulance doors burst open moments later. The patient was already awake. Natalie expected chaos when the ambulance doors opened. That was the pattern she'd learned: shouting, rushing, overlapping voices, someone calling out vitals before the gurney was even through the doors. Trauma usually announced itself loudly. This one didn't. The paramedics wheeled the gurney in at a steady pace. Not slow, not fast. The man on it was conscious, alert, and strangely composed. He lay flat, hands folded neatly over his chest, eyes tracking the ceiling lights as they passed. "I'm sorry," he said as soon as Natalie stepped up beside him. His voice was calm, almost formal. "I didn't mean to cause a fuss." Natalie blinked. Patients didn't usually apologize like that. Not fresh off the street. Not after being hit by a car. "You didn't cause anything," she said automatically, reaching for the monitor leads. "Let's just get you settled." The clothes were clean but dated. Not old exactly, just out of step. A jacket that had gone out of style years ago. Shoes polished but worn thin at the soles. There was blood on his sleeve, but not as much as Natalie expected. "What happened?" she asked. "Halsted," he said. "I was crossing." That was it. No anger, no shock, no fear. The monitor flicked to life. His pulse was there, faint but steady. Blood pressure low but not crashing. Oxygen levels hovering in a way Natalie didn't like but couldn't quite panic over. Nothing about him made sense. She checked him for fractures. Bruising bloomed along his ribs and shoulders, deep and dark. But there was no obvious break, no deformity, no gasping for breath. He winced when she pressed along his side, but only slightly. "You're doing great," she said, because that was what you said. He nodded. "That's good. I was hoping they would." "Who?" Natalie asked, distracted. "The others," he replied, as if that explained everything. Debbie was already at the computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. Natalie watched her face change as the system loaded. Not alarm, not confusion, recognition. Debbie leaned back slowly. "He's already here," Debbie said. Natalie frowned. "Already checked in?" Debbie shook her head. "Already in the system." She turned the monitor slightly so Natalie could see. The name was there. Not just tonight's entry, but others. Years apart. Same name. Same age. Same intake notes. Natalie felt a chill move up her arms. "That's not possible," she said. Debbie's mouth tightened. "It shouldn't be." On the gurney, the man turned his head slightly toward them. "Did they make it?" he asked. Natalie paused. "Did who make it?" "The one behind me," he said gently. "The kid on the bike." Natalie opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She hadn't heard anything about a cyclist. Debbie met her eyes just for a second. "We'll find out," Debbie said. The man smiled, faint but relieved, and settled back against the pillow. Natalie watched the monitor as his pulse ticked on, steady and soft. And for the first time since she had started nights, she had the distinct, unsettling sense that this patient wasn't here for himself at all. The man didn't crash. That was the first thing Natalie noticed. His vitals didn't spiral the way trauma patients' vitals usually did. There was no sudden drop, no frantic scramble, no alarms screaming for attention. Instead, his pulse slowly softened, like someone turning down a dimmer switch. Natalie stayed with him longer than she normally would have. She told herself it was because she was new and cautious, because Debbie had told her to watch closely. But really, it was because she couldn't shake the feeling that if she looked away, something important would happen without her. Around them, the ER kept moving. Another ambulance arrived. A drunk couple argued near triage. A doctor cursed under his breath at a printer that refused to cooperate. And still the man lay there, calm as a lake without wind. "Are you in pain?" Natalie asked quietly.
"A little," he said, "but it's not for me to worry about."
She hesitated. "Why do you keep saying that?" He smiled again, that same soft, apologetic smile.
"Because it always works out better when I don't."
Debbie came back with a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter near Natalie. "You seeing it now?" she murmured. Natalie didn't look away from the monitor. "Seeing what?" "The pattern," Debbie said. She nodded toward the man on the bed. "He shows up," Debbie continued, "always at night, always from Halsted, always when someone else is hanging by a thread." Natalie swallowed. "How many times?" Debbie exhaled slowly. "More than you want to know." They watched the monitor together. The man shifted slightly.
"Did you hear anything yet?"
he asked. Natalie checked the board. A new trauma had been logged. Teenage male, bike versus car. Critical, but alive. She felt her chest loosen without realizing it. "He's still with us," she said. The man's shoulders relaxed, just a fraction.
"Good."
Minutes later, his pulse faded. No spike, no alarm. Just a soft line flattening into stillness. Natalie reached for the call button, heart thumping. Debbie placed a hand over hers. "No code," Debbie said quietly. Natalie stared at her. "But—" Debbie shook her head. "There's nothing to save." The room felt suddenly too still. Natalie checked again anyway. Reflex, training, denial. But Debbie was right. The man was gone. Natalie stepped back, breathing hard. "So what do we do?" Debbie glanced at the chart, then back at Natalie. "We close it," she said, "and we wait." "For what?" Debbie looked toward the ambulance bay, where the doors were already swinging open again. "For the next one who shouldn't have made it," she said. Natalie followed her gaze, a chill settling deep in her bones. She was beginning to understand why nurses didn't tell this story to scare anyone. They told it to explain how survival sometimes felt borrowed. Debbie waited until the shift slowed. That didn't mean quiet. The ER was never quiet, but the kind of lull where no one was actively dying and the coffee had gone stale enough to taste honest. Natalie was restocking supplies when Debbie joined her, leaning against the counter like she always did when she was about to say something that mattered. "You want to know who he is," Debbie said. Natalie nodded. "I think I need to." Debbie glanced around the department first, making sure no one else was listening. "Late 70s, she said. "Early 80s, maybe, back when Halsted was worse than it is now. Poor lighting, faster traffic. Nobody slowed down." Natalie stayed quiet. "There was a man crossing the street late one night," Debbie continued. "No witnesses who stuck around. Hit and run. They brought him here, same ER, same trauma bay you were just standing in." Natalie felt her stomach tighten. "He didn't make it," Debbie said. "Pronounced dead not long after arrival." She paused and then added, "But that wasn't the strange part." "What was?" Debbie folded her arms. "A few years later, a nurse swore she saw him again, same face, same name on the board, same age, like time just skipped him." Natalie frowned. "Same chart?" Debbie nodded. "Same chart, same everything, no updates except the date." Debbie told her about the other times. A pedestrian who lived despite massive head trauma. A cab driver who should have bled out but didn't. a kid thrown from a bike who woke up asking for his mom. "Every time," Debbie said, "he shows up first." Natalie swallowed. "And he always dies?" Debbie shook her head. I don't think that's the right word." "What is then?" Debbie thought about it. "He moves on." Natalie pictured the man's calm face, the way he never asked about himself, the way his pulse faded only after she had said the cyclist was alive. "What does he want?" Natalie asked. Debbie smiled faintly. "He never wants anything." She leaned closer. "But he always asks the same question." Natalie didn't need to ask which one. Debbie straightened and sighed. "Some of the nurses call him the walker. Some call him the escort. Most of us just say, 'Our guy from Halsted.'" Natalie stared down at her hands. "Why does he come back?" Debbie shrugged. "Maybe he didn't get anyone to walk him across that night. Maybe he didn't get anyone to walk him across that night. Maybe he decided to be that person for someone else." Natalie thought of the packed train full of sleeping people, of waiting rooms in the middle of the night, of spaces where time seemed to pause. "And you believe that?" Natalie asked. Debbie met her eyes. "I believe I've seen enough people survive who shouldn't have." She started to walk away, then stopped. One more thing," Debbie said. Natalie looked up. "If you ever see his name on the board again," Debbie said, "don't panic, don't rush, and whatever you do—" "Yes?" "Make sure you answer him when he asks." Debbie left Natalie standing there, the weight of the story settling in her chest. Natalie glanced back toward the trauma bay. For just a second she thought she saw someone standing there, hands folded, waiting patiently. But when she looked again, the space was empty. It happened again, months later. Natalie knew the rhythm of the ER well enough by then to feel it coming, that subtle tightening in the air, the way conversations shorted, the way people glanced toward the board more often than they needed to. Another trauma, another hit-and-run on Halsted, another late night. Natalie was the one who saw the name first. It appeared without fanfare, just another line on the screen, same spelling, same age, same impossible consistency. Her stomach dropped. Debbie was already beside her. "Okay," Debbie said calmly. "You ready?" Natalie nodded, even though she wasn't sure that was true. The ambulance arrived quietly again. No shouting, no panic. The man was awake, alert, apologetic, exactly as Debbie had described.
"I'm sorry,"
he said, looking at Natalie as they wheeled him in.
"I know it's late."
"That's okay," she replied, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. This time Natalie noticed everything. How his clothes didn't quite belong to any decade she could place. How his hands folded the same way every time he rested them. How his eyes never darted, never searched the room. As she worked, he watched her with calm attention.
"They're still working on him, aren't they?"
he asked gently. Natalie checked the board. The other patient, a woman, pedestrian versus SUV, was critical but stable. "Yes," Natalie said, "she's holding on." The man closed his eyes for a moment, relief passing across his face like a breath finally let out.
"That's good," he said. "She didn't deserve it."
Natalie felt something tighten behind her ribs. When his vitals faded this time, Natalie didn't rush. She stayed. She listened. She watched the monitor settle into stillness without resistance. No code was called. No one argued. Afterward, as they cleaned the room, Natalie stood at the sink longer than she needed to, hands under running water she didn't feel. Debbie joined her. "You did good," Debbie said. Natalie swallowed. "Does it ever get easier?" Debbie shook her head. "No, but you get better at understanding what you're seeing." Natalie looked back toward the empty trauma bay. "He knew," she said, "before we did." Debbie nodded. He always does. As Natalie turned back to the desk, she glanced once more at the board. The other patient's status had updated. Stable. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Later that night, as the ER settled back into its familiar chaos, Natalie passed the ambulance bay and thought she saw someone standing there. Just for a second. Hands folded, posture patient, waiting. She stopped. "Thank you," she said softly, feeling foolish and sincere all at once. The space remained empty, but the night felt lighter. Natalie never saw his name again. Still, every time an accident came in from Halsted, every time someone survived when the odds said they shouldn't, Natalie found herself checking the board twice, just in case. Because some people didn't come to the hospital to be saved. Some people came to make sure someone else made it home.
We need to keep kids safe online, but some special interests are sending policymakers in the wrong direction, pushing the so-called App Store Accountability Act, demanding government ID from all users just to download an app, replacing parents' judgment with government mandates. It doesn't even stand up in court. A better bipartisan bill, the Parents Over Platforms Act, would put parents in the driver's seat, empowering parents and businesses to keep kids safe without drowning all of us in red tape. Tell Congress to get it done right and put parents over platforms.
Paid for by ACT, the App Association.
Quick, choose a meal deal with McValue. The $5 McChicken meal deal, the $6 McDouble meal deal, or the new $7 Daily Double meal deal. Each with its own small fries, drink, and 4-piece McNuggets. There's actually no rush. I'm just excited for McDonald's.
For limited time only, prices and participation may vary. Not valid for McDelivery.
Yeah, okay, that one hit different.
It usually does when it comes from a hospital.
I mean, I've told some dark stories. You've told some dark stories, but that one feels like it's a new level.
Hospitals collect things like that. Not ghosts exactly, more like unfinished business with good intentions.
You're telling me there's a guy out there whose whole afterlife is just making sure strangers don't die?
If that's true, he's probably exhausted.
I hope he at least gets breaks.
Oh, he does, whenever someone makes it through the night.
You know what's wild? I'll never be able to drive down Halsted again without thinking about that.
Good, maybe people will slow down.
Or at least look both ways.
That's all most of us ever want.
You ever think about all the people who passed through places like that and just never really left?
Every shift.
Yeah.
Come on, let's get off before this turns into an existential crisis at Damon.
Deal, but if you see someone standing patiently on the platform...
Wave, then keep walking.
Good night, Halsted.
Thanks for watching over, everyone.
Tales from the Blue Line by Auditory Anthology is written and produced by me, Keith Conrad. Your narrator is Darren Marlar. Be sure to check out Darren's award-winning paranormal podcast, Weird Darkness, available at WeirdDarkness.com and your podcast app of choice. If you have a story you'd like to contribute to this series, you can do so by visiting submissions.soundconceptmedia.com or just follow the link in the show notes. You can also support the show by subscribing to our new Substack at auditoryanthology.substack.com. By becoming a paid subscriber, you'll help keep the stories coming. You'll also get every single episode completely commercial-free, and now you can also vote on which story will feature in upcoming episodes.
We need to keep kids safe online, but some special interests are sending policymakers in the wrong direction, pushing the so-called App Store Accountability Act, demanding government ID from all users just to download an app, replacing parents' judgment with government mandates. It doesn't even stand up in court. A better bipartisan bill, the Parents Over Platforms Act, would put parents in the driver's seat, empowering parents and businesses to keep kids safe without drowning all of us in red tape. Tell Congress to get it done right and put parents over platforms.
Paid for by ACT, the App Association.